after my MDMA session, we haven't talked about that, have we?
You told me you did it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I saw it on Instagram.
Okay.
You did
Gotcha.
But I never heard the full experience of it.
Yeah, man. I mean, it takes so long to talk to explain. But one of the things is I didn't realize how much emotion played into people's understanding of things. You know, like you can express something very logical. Like in debate, when you learn how to debate, you realize that you have to convince the other person, right?
Yeah.
So there are tactics you use to convince that other person of your side or whatever. And you try to make it as logical as possible.
Right.
But in that process, you still don't do anything with the emotional feelings behind why they feel that way. You know, like you and I could be like, hey, look, you can't eat this food and this food and this food and then sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and expect something to change.
That's just a logical thing.
Right, it's logical. But to them, they have an emotional connection to that, you know, to bread or to something from when they were in middle school where their parents were fighting and they would just go to their room with a bag of Doritos.
Right.
And they've never connected with that child and been like, hey, look, you were too emotionally immature to respond correctly to this situation.
Yeah.
And you just went to Doritos and you've never had like a fresh look at that to be like, oh, you know what? I didn't need that. I needed it at the time because I was at the emotional maturity level of, hey, this is how I can get by and survive in this situation. But now I don't need it.
Right.
So
You're a different person now.
Yeah, exactly. But it's hard to come to grips on that on the fact that you're so much different.
100%, and it's physiological.
And the same, right?
Exactly. It's like all of the parts of you at the same time. You're not like completely different. That's just one aspect of you. Now you've grown into all these different aspects of yourself over all these experiences that you've had. And the emotional experiences are the ones that stick with you for a reason.
Yeah.
When the emotion is strong, those neural synapses, they connect a lot stronger and they bond and they like solidify in your subconscious mind so much easier. And I was actually just watching this, it was like a documentary show type thing. It's new on Netflix. I think it's called The Human Body or something like that.
Okay.
And the first episode is talking exactly about how your emotions, if you have a strong emotional connection with whatever you're learning, it's going to forge that connection so much more powerfully. And your neurons and your nerve cells, they actually shift and change to make that connection even stronger. And over time, the more times you fire and wire that specific neural synapse, the stronger and the thicker the connection actually physically gets as well. Right. So the thicker it is, the harder it is to let go of that particular thought process. So that kid who brings the bag of Doritos, if that emotional event was so powerful that it's now subconscious, physiologically, it's going to be harder for him to actually prune that neural synapse. Yeah. Which means like the neural synapse, like kind of like shrivels up and dies, right? Versus gets stronger.
Yeah, that pathway is not being used anymore.
Right. Except if it is being used continuously from the age of 5 until the age of 40, 35, you know, our typical clients that we see around here, that's a very, very strong connection that they're making.
Yeah, and that creates a personality.
Exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. It's insane.
Dude, when I got goosebumps just talking about it, but when I did the MDMA session, it really made sense of all the stuff I was reading. You know, the like, Joe Dispenza and all the stuff that we talk about.
And that's a good point too. Before you finish,
go ahead.
Like your experience is so much more powerful than just reading something. Like to go through it,
yeah, and that's one of the things about the MDMA session is when I started explaining it to people, I was like, oh. No one could have explained this to me the way that I experienced it. And I was like, damn, all the words I'm using are actually doing less justice towards the experience because it's such an emotional experience. And especially for men who have been told to shut their emotions off for whatever reasons, you know, survival, pretty much.
Basically.
Yeah. That you don't even remember your feelings.
Crazy.
So when it floods you, which is what MDMA does, is it floods your system with serotonin, right?
Okay.
The feel good chemical in the
right.
brain. You feel like a kid for the first time since you were like 6, 7, 8.
Wow. What is that? I know it's hard to describe, but what does that feel like?
Well, I had so when I was in the session, I remember I've done so much research on it. I've got a book like 400 some pages long of like 50 firsthand accounts of patients doing MDMA. And
in what form did you take it in?
Just powder form. Put it in a pill.
Okay.
And what happens is, damn, what was I saying?
So your experience with it, what happens when it floods your body with
Oh,
serotonin?
yeah. So I remember somebody had asked, they were writing a blog about it, and they said, I let go of my anger in the session. And what I realized was, it's not that I needed the anger, he said, but it was my best explanation was like, when you gotta have to take a shit, and then you take that shit and you feel so much better, right?
Absolutely.
But you have a memory of that shit being there.
Yep.
And it's like, well, it's not there, and you don't want it, and you don't need it.
Right.
And you don't have any like desire for it anymore, but you remember it was there.
You know the feeling.
So you gave it space. So that space needs to be filled up with something new now. And he was like, I needed to like reconnect with like that thing that sparked me as a kid.
Okay.
Like what was that feeling, or what was that thing that kind of like excited you as a kid that was suffocated by this reactionary emotion or whatever that you now have turned into a personality.
That
right?
makes sense.
And I was thinking about that in the session, and then all of a sudden, dude, I was back to being a kid, living in the woods in North Carolina, and I remember running down the stairs outside and grabbing my shoes, which were covered in mud from the day before, just playing in the woods.
Yeah.
I just beat them up against the brick wall, knock all the mud off. I put them on, strapped them on, and just sprinted into the woods, looking for like a new creek to play in or a new tree to climb. Yeah. Like that was the goal. All right, today, new creek, new tree. You know what I mean?
Some frogs or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I just ran it, and I was like, damn, I used to enjoy my day.
Wow.
I used to choose to enjoy my day. Wow. And I was like, damn, it was a choice.
Holding you back.
Yeah, I made that choice when I was a kid that finding a tree is going to be the enjoyable part of my day today.
Wow.
And it just hit me. I was like, oh, dude, you were just adventurous. You were courageous. You didn't, like, you would go to school and you'd meet kids and they'd be like, what do you do? And I'm like, I just go home and like climb trees, like they're taller than my house and like jump from tree to tree or something. And they're like, oh, that's crazy. And I was like, I always felt pride in being that courageous, like wild kid. You know what I mean?
And that's like, so basically that's the energy we're born with until we go through life experiences that kind of suppress our natural state of being, which is the feeling of just doing what you love all the time.
Yeah. And it was weird. I was like, that's what I got to get back to. Yeah. It's not necessarily a thing like, oh, you wanted to be a ballet dancer and you stopped that. It's like, that could have been what you wanted to do. Sure. But also I think it was like the energy behind it,
exactly.
The faith behind it. You know what I mean?
It all comes down to that. Right?
It really does, dude.
There's nothing else in this world that matters more than what you believe.
Yeah.
What you have faith in, what you like that's why religion is religion.
Yeah.
Right? Because every religion is based on one thing, what you believe in.
Yeah. You got to believe something.
That's it.
Yeah.
What do you believe about yourself? That's powerful.